I'm sure you can't see my address. What's up, everybody? Yo, yo, yo. It's Tyler with Hooksets are free. My voice is gone. I swear I had it just a minute ago. Come back to me, man. Come back to me. What's up, everybody? It's Tyler with Hooksets. Holy crap, dude. Where did my voice go? I swear I had it just a minute ago. It'll come back to me. I don't know what's happening. But guys, it's about 9 o'clock here on Friday night, March 25th. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a great week. I don't know if I jinxed the package or if Tackle Warehouse saw my video from last week, or if, let's say, Tackle Warehouse has just kind of gotten their stuff together. But let's be honest, I was dogging on them a week ago when we were doing some live shopping on Tackle Warehouse. This was just a week ago. I placed the order last Saturday on the 19th. They shipped it out on Tuesday, the 22nd, and it got here today on the 25th. So 6-day turnaround from purchase to receiving the order is pretty good for Tackle Warehouse these days. Now, it's definitely not as good as the hookup tackle, for example. But compared to the experience that I've had over the last year or two, it was significantly better. It has been slow throughout COVID. So maybe, just maybe, they're getting a little bit quicker. They're speeding up. Maybe they're staffed a little bit better than they were, or they're able to keep things in stock. I don't know what it is, but all I know is I'm happy that this package is sitting here right now and that I'm going to open it with you guys. We've got some cool stuff to talk about. You guys probably saw most of the lures when we were shopping. I mean, we talked about them right then and there. So I am going to open this in just a moment once we give people a chance to hop in here. But what's up, Daniel? Hey, Eliza, how you doing tonight? I think I found most of my voice, at least. I'm a little bit better than I was just 2 minutes ago. Massless Chap, Ron Holly in the house. How you doing, dude? Eliza says Shimano delayed some of its reel deliveries yet again. That is rough. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. That's unfortunate. So Eliza, your $5 from that from the beginning of that live stream went toward this package. So I gotta say, an extra special thank you to you. And at some point, if you keep supporting this channel, I'm gonna send you a care package at some point. So I don't mean support the channel by donating, but just having you be in here. I really don't ask or expect anybody to donate ever, but just participating makes me like you. You know, I start to feel like friends with a lot of you guys, and so it's good to see you in here a little bit more frequently as of late. So thank you for your support, just in the way of watching and being a part of the community. So again, just as a reminder, I don't know exactly what it was that motivated me to make this purchase from Tackle Warehouse. There might have been one or two baits that came back in stock that caught my eye, or maybe it was just kind of time. You know, it had been like probably 6 weeks or so since I had made a Tackle Warehouse order. And you guys know by now that I like to keep wish lists on Tackle Warehouse where I can kind of keep track of things that I want to put in a purchase for the future. But I don't make super regular purchases from Tackle Warehouse, not even once a month throughout the year. So I want to make sure that I can remember when I get around to making a purchase what had been on my mind in the past leading up to that purchase, not just right then in the moment, because it's easy to forget, you know. So if you guys don't use that wish list feature, you know, when you go to add something to your cart, there's a button like right next to it that says add to your wish list. And you can just create a wish list. I've got like 15 of them at this point, and I think the one that we created last week was called like Spring/Summer 2022, and the one that I had before that was Spring 2022. And so one or two of those lures are in this package, and otherwise I was just doing a little browsing around, decided to pick up some stuff that isn't sold on Discount Tackle, or that it had been on my radar for a while but wasn't in stock until just last week. So finally decided to pull that trigger. So I believe this guy added up to like $89, something like that. And I said I wanted to spend somewhere in the ballpark of like 75 bucks. So not too bad. Of course, a little bit over budget, but it is what it is. So recently I've been using this giant swim bait hook to open up my packages. This is a 6 cents Divine swim bait head in like the 1 ounce 8/0 size. I use this on giant soft plastic swim baits. Like you could use this on a Mag Draft Freestyle, or even like a 7-inch Spark Shad, something like that. If you wanted to throw an exposed jig head and fish it slower along the bottom, that heavy weight's going to allow it to get down. I don't fish from a boat, so I don't fish ledges or anything like that. But that's where this guy would really excel or come into play. All right, we got Matt in the house, South Jersey Fisherman 028. Not the best YouTube name. Just kidding. I don't want to dog on you again about that. That was just friendly advice last night. Don't get me wrong, okay? You certainly don't have to change your name again, but just looking out for you as a supporter and a friend, I want people to be able to find you easily, and for your channel to grow as much as possible. I don't think it has anything to do with YouTube not liking your content, not wanting to push it out, because typically speaking, when you create a new channel on YouTube, it does get pushed out a little bit better than existing channels. And so, especially for people who know you and want to look up the channel and give you a subscription, then you might want to create something that's a little bit easier to find, a little bit more search friendly. Eliza says Sportsman's Outfitters has some nice prices on baits, FYI. Interesting. I did not know that, but I will keep that in mind. Man, so they sent this in a pretty big box, and I'm not exactly sure why. I guess it's because some of these soft plastics come in a slightly larger packaging, but I don't know that it was totally necessary. So, anyway, as usual, I will show you guys a little preview of what we ordered here. I'll show you the invoice right now so that you can see. Wait, 72 bucks? That doesn't sound right. I could have sworn it was $89. I don't know. This freaking thing says 72 bucks. So maybe I dropped some things off my cart, but I swear when I checked that email a couple days ago, I could have sworn it said $89. So anyway, Matt says, oh no, I don't see anything wrong with what you said. You're right, because everyone was having issues finding me. All right, cool. Ron says, yeah, Matt, saw 2 of your videos, then couldn't find you again. Yeah. No, Ron, I suggested making it something that's like actually more searchable. Maybe just plain words with some spaces, something like that. Maybe a little bit more creative, could be a JDM bank fishing nut. Bank fishing JDM. I don't know. Who cares? All right, guys. I'm just going to pretty much start at the top and work our way through this. There are not a million things in this package. So, like I said, 72 bucks is what this thing added up to, apparently. And first thing in here is a new bait. I think this was released just at the Classic, maybe. And this is the Yum. Of course, this one that is exposed is kind of smashed up. We'll see if it's actually smashed or what. But whatever, it doesn't matter. So this is the Yum Scottsboro Swimbaits. So Scottsboro Tackle is based out of Alabama. I think they're near Gunnersville, and they make some super high quality hand poured swim baits. If you guys don't already know about them, their stuff is awesome. I've talked about them a number of times, and I'm definitely a believer in their baits. Not only are they gorgeous looking and truly hand poured, they've got a great action to them, and they're super soft, but really well poured. Most of them do come with this wide open belly slot. Sometimes you kind of have to manually uh, slice it a little bit to open that up, but it does have that belly slot designed in there. So great baits. Now, Yum paired up with Scottsboro to make these Finesse swim baits, which are really designed to be thrown on an Alabama rig, specifically on the Yum Flash Mob Junior. So that's not necessarily what I intend to do with it, although I do have a couple of Flash Mob Juniors. Yeah, this one is a little bit twisted up, so I'm going to put it in a different slot, see if it might recover just by sitting in there. But so here is what these swim baits look like. And I will say, straight out of the pack and in the hand, these things feel great. This is that black shad color. Look at how soft that thing looks, and it feels super soft too. So this guy does have not a belly slot, because this thing is meant to be rigged on a jig head more than anything. And even though these aren't hand poured, which you can tell because of the way that they ripped these off of the mold, that nose is a pretty good indicator that these are soft plastic injected swim baits, but it's made from a material that is super soft, and I would imagine has a really good swimming action. So if you take a look at this bait, I think it's got kind of just the right amount of action that is comparable to what you'd get out of a larger Scottsboro tackle swim bait, and I like it. So this black shad color, as I explained on my live stream while we were shopping, reminds me a lot of the Kitech black shad color, which is not readily available anymore. It used to be kind of a staple color for Kitech, that black back and then that shad belly. And I've always been a really big fan of this color. And I do still have a couple packs of them. I'm not going to necessarily dig them out right now, but I have not run out of the stock that I have of those guys. So when I saw this color in stock for this swim bait, kind of decided that I wanted it and was going to pick them up. So that's precisely what I did. As you can see, this bait is made in 4 sizes. Comes in a 3-inch, 3.5, 4, and 4.5. I think all of the sizes come with 6 in a pack. So, I told you guys I was a little bit tempted to go ahead and buy a larger size, since you do get 6 in a pack no matter what size you get. But that 3.5, I think, is going to be a very versatile bait for me, whether I'm throwing it on the back of a smaller swim jig with a trimmed down skirt, or more likely just as a finesse swim bait. So I did get 2 packs of the same size and just 2 different colors. The other color that I got, well, I'll tell you that this first color by them is called black back shad. Okay. And this other color here is called Sunny Bluegill. And that's lovely. Eliza says bank fishing OnlyFans. That would be a pretty decent channel name. A little silly, but would definitely get some people's attention. That's for sure. Daniel says he's got some of the Yum Scottsboros coming in his next purchase. So check out this color, the Sunny Bluegill. I like this guy. I think this is going to get bit really well. So you get that green pumpkin with a little bit of blue flake, and then more of like a chartreusey type of belly. Perfect little bluegill pattern there. So love that bait. And I'm excited to see kind of how it swims and what it's about, because I think it's fairly reasonably priced, if I'm not mistaken. These guys were $5.99 a pack. So $1 per swim bait. And I think that that's pretty reasonable, in my opinion. Ron says, just got 6 packs of those from Tackle Junkie. What do you mean? Did you win a giveaway or something like that? Because that's pretty cool. Bank fishing for fishing fun. Wait. Fishing fish for fishing fun. What? That is a pretty wild name. What is your name, dude? You say, I grabbed a pack of Rage Swimmers, and when I got home, I realized the pack was missing one. That's super weird. Not very often that happens. But, the Rage Swimmer is a good swim bait. For a while, I justified using it over the Kitex just because you get like one more per pack, and they're a little bit cheaper than Kitex, but it is a blatant knockoff of a Kitex. So it is what it is. It's a good swim bait. Matt says those look pretty decent. Might even be good for a swim jig. Well, that was my first thought, right? Throw that on like a 1/4 ounce swim jig. Say, throw that bluegill color on. Well, this could be a 3/8, but I know I bought some of these in the 1/4 ounce, and I thought they were labeled. Dang it! So this is the Evergreen Grass Ripper swim jig. And you could throw that bluegill color on here. Of course, just trim down that skirt to where it's closer to the hook itself. And I think that would make a pretty nice pairing. So yeah, like swim jig was kind of my first thought, but finesse swim bait on just like a ball head is really the most logical way to use that bait in the 3.5 inch. If it was a 4 inch, I think it would make a great trailer, especially on a swim jig, more so than a chatterbait. But yeah, those things look pretty good, to be honest. $6 a pop. I'm gonna try these 2 colors out first, see kind of how I like the action of them, and then roll from there to decide what to do moving forward. Matt says the Sunny Bluegill looks like the green bluegill near me. Yeah, no, that's a great color for sure. Eliza, I agree. It does look fire. All right, let's just dive right into it. This one is a little bit hyped up, if you will. So this was a bait that came out at ICAST last year and was highly regarded by a lot of people, but did not end up winning awards when theoretically it could have or should have potentially. I've heard mostly really good things about this bait, but I heard Kevin, the bait man Baxter, recently dogging on these baits. So This is the Jackal Bounty Fish 158. And I got 2 packs of these. These were out of stock for like all year last year. And so I've been really curious about this bait more than anything because it is super unique. Definitely has some scent on it. But here is what we're looking at. This is a 6-inch fluke style bait with a large joint that is only attached by a mesh. So, very interesting concept here. Seems a little bit gimmicky, but I guess this bait is made from a high floating plastic. And so, while theoretically you could fish it as a fluke, where you're fishing at subsurface, or you could rig it as a chatterbait trailer on, a large chatterbait. This is really meant to be a topwater walking bait made to fish weedlessly. So you see that the nose on this thing is pointed, right? And that is to hide the line tie of your hook. So you're gonna Texas rig this thing, come in the nose, out the chin, and then gonna come out the back, and you're gonna rig it deep enough in the nose of the bait so that then that line tie is not coming out the nose. So, really, I think that this is probably the target point for where you want to come out the chin to make sure that you're not rigging it too shallow and having your hook point exposed. But um, this is a cool color, cool bait. I can't tell if it's going to be durable at all, but I got to say, I'm happy that at least 4 come in a package with these baits. So, um, I really did not know what to expect with this thing, and seems cool. Obviously, it's not going to be a bait that I will throw all that frequently, and I probably won't end up throwing it until like July, quite honestly, because top water doesn't really get going for me until July or August. And so this will be more of a dead of the summer type of technique for me. But just in the event that it's not back in stock by then, I wanted to have some of these on my person for when the time comes, because there are some places that I fish that are ponds and or super grassy. And so where you would throw a frog is where you could throw this thing and get a totally different type of action where it's actually walking on the surface much wider like a walking bait would than a frog just walking right in place. Um, so I'm excited to try this thing. It is a fairly large bait at 158. I think you're probably going to need to throw a 6/0 hook in this, maybe even larger. So who knows? I picked it up in 2 colors. They didn't have the shad patterns available. So this is called the Coverside Shad. It is like mostly black with a hint of blue and then just a little bit of like gold and blue flake in there. And then I also just got it in a green pumpkin blue. And yeah, I will say that the flake in these things is super subtle. So you can't really pick up on much flake. You see a little bit of flake down here, right? But not super flaky. So that's a pretty straight green pumpkin right there. Great bluegill imitator. Might even, dip the tail in some chartreuse, things like that. But this black one, in my opinion, is just going to be a little bit better for low light conditions, especially for night fishing, things like that, because there are some ponds that I go to and night fish specifically where I'm fishing treble hook baits, throwing rats and wake baits and poppers and things like that. And I will bring the bait back and it will have muck on it. Like I have to have really good light, really only on a full moon where I'll be able to see specifically where those clumps of grass are to be able to avoid them with my cast so as to not waste a cast. But with a bait like this, I will be able to just one, aimlessly cast if, let's say, the light isn't great, or if it's a full moon, then I will be able to target those grass clumps where it's likely that some fish will be hanging out in or nearby to ambush bait fish as they're coming by. So I'm excited for just some applications like that, and we'll certainly use it this year. But my expectations are relatively low because it's not going to be like a day in and day out type of bait for me. It's just one that I saw, really liked the concept of, wanted to see in person. And even though they're $10 a pack, you get four in a pack and they're a big bait and they're super unique. So I got 2 packs of those. Well, Ron Holly, congratulations on winning that contest from Tackle Junkie. That's pretty sweet, dude. You got 6 packs of those Scottsboro swim baits. Okay, you're set, man. What sizes are the ones that you got? Matt says, I don't know why more companies haven't put that mesh into Senko baits so that you could just hook it through the plastic and it wouldn't rip as easily. You know, that's a good point. I suppose it's not really environmentally conscious, but it is a good idea, right? Um, there's only been a couple of baits on the market where bait makers are putting like springs or one-off things inside their baits to one affect the action and two allow you to rig it a little bit differently or to make it more durable like you're talking about. So yeah, I hear you. Ron says, I hope after you fish that bounty fish that you give us a rundown. I will, but just expect that it's going to be probably 4 months until that happens. So, yeah, if you want to hold off this year on getting that bait, by all means, I fully intend to do that with a lot of baits for you guys this year that I've kind of gone out of my way to try that are a little bit less mainstream, slightly more out there. Last night I unboxed the Depths Evoke 1.2 square bill crankbait. And this is $20 square bill. I until this year would not have been caught dead using a $20 crankbait, let alone $20 small bodied square bill crankbait. But I've been overcome by some of these feelings, and I've been convinced by some people that there are exceptions to be made. So I will keep you guys posted on all of the baits that are new to me that I'm trying for the first time. I did go out today for a very short period of time. I convinced my 3-year-old daughter to take her and my 1-year-old son out to a lake, have a picnic lunch, do a little bit of fishing, and the unfortunate reality is when we got there, the wind picked up like crazy. So it was like 60 degrees, but really windy. One, it was blowing our food around. And then two, by the time we finished lunch and made it down to the dock area where we were going to fish, because I had my son in the stroller, so wasn't really going to fish on a riprap bank. I did not have the harness to be able to wear him and hold my daughter's hand, bring her down on the rocks by the bank. This was just easier for us to go out on the dock and allow her to make a couple casts and then me mess around a little bit. So the water was really cold and was super stained, not muddy, but very dark green. Visibility was probably 6 to 12 inches, not great. And yeah, it was ice cold. I would say low 40s most likely. Uh could have been mid 40s, but it's still very early. So I brought 3 baits tied on, only fished 2 of them for like 10 casts each. Did not catch any fish, but I tied on that Lucky Craft LV 150 in an Aurora black color that I unboxed just earlier this week from Discount Tackle. It was sunny out, so I figured that flash from that color would serve me well. I really like the feel of it. I could tell that as I was retrieving it on a straight retrieve, medium, medium slow speed, that it was still only running some 3 to 4 feet deep. So I really liked that. Um, it was immediately responsive whenever I would pump the reel or kill it. Uh, I really liked the feel of the bait. It also looked good as it was coming back in shallower water, or I was just kind of running it below me to see what it looked like. So happy with that bait so far. And then I also threw the cellmate color of the Spro Little John 50 that I opened in that same unboxing just like 6 days ago. That cellmate color is more of a stained water type of color. And I figure with the water being as cold as it is, that this is the time to take advantage of bait fish patterns more than craw patterns. It's just as the water starts heating up and is kind of in between that high 40s and mid to late 50s where I have had the most success on reds personally. So I'm going to throw bait fish patterns for the next week or two until I notice that activity starts picking up a little bit, and then I will mix it up a little bit more. Um, I'll start throwing reds primarily, and then I'll start going to more natural greens and bluegills as we start to get a little bit closer to the spawn. So, sorry for the rant there. Tom Mix in the house. What's up, Tom? How you doing tonight? Ron says I got 2 packs of the 3, 2 packs of the 3.5, 1 pack of the 4, and 1 pack of the 4.5. Nice. Looks like you got a solid variety. That's awesome. Ray, Kid Iraq in the house. How you doing tonight, man? He said, Tyler, dang man, how are you gonna have time to throw all these lures? Honestly, I live on a lake and fish almost every day on the dock or on my boat. I don't have time for all that. Um, yeah, I don't have time to fish all of the lures that I own, but most of them, you know. And so for me, it's transitioned over the last couple of years from just wanting to have the most fish catchingest lures combined with cost effective lures. I wanted to have a wide selection, but not over the top. And that has gradually grown to the point where now it's more of an enthusiast level where it's bordering on collecting, but it's more than that. It's really just me wanting to understand what makes one bait different than another so that over time I will be able to apply specific baits to specific bodies of waters, areas, depending on the water temperature, the clarity, the structure that I'm fishing, everything like that, down to, of course, the forage that they feed on. So it's more just like an attempt for me to continue learning in this journey, and I'm obsessed, right? I'm addicted to lures. So what can I tell you, Ray? Matt says, I never told you, Tyler. I got those Issei gill flats, the juniors. They look pretty sweet. They don't come pre-rigged or with a harness, but I'm going to rig them the same way as the original by just putting a centering pin in the nose and nose hook it with a wacky rig. Cool. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I did not think about really doing that with the gilly because you guys know that I've got 1 pack of the smallest size of the gilly. Now, it's not a color that I adore per se, black and blue, but yeah, I think that's a good rigging. Just use an owner CPS spring, screw it into the nose, and then nose hook it with like a drop out style hook, and then fish it either on a drop shot or maybe even throw a nail weight in it and fish it nose hooked. That's an interesting way. I think most people throw it, or the most recommended way to use it is on a Texas rig, right? Where you rig it sideways and then that thing will still swim upright just with the hook sitting horizontally. And so I think it depends on where I'm using it that will dictate how I rig that bait, because there are some places that I fish that are super weedy, um, that are chock full of bluegills. So in that instance, I'm definitely going to throw it on a Texas rig as opposed to nose hooked. But that's a good suggestion, and there are specific areas where I can think that nose hooking it would be effective. So sweet, man, good idea. Bruce Nichols, how you doing, dude? Good to see you in here. Tom says above ground, so I guess all is good, Tyler. All right. Well, I hear you, man. I think we all should just be grateful to be alive and talking fishing tonight. So happy Friday night to you guys. Cheers. Daniel is absolutely right. That's what I meant to say. It's an addiction to lures as much as it is an addiction to fishing. That's really become the thing for me over the last few years. Um, it varies from year to year what my availability is to get out and go fishing. But, like last year, for example, I was able to go on average 5 times a week for 2 to 4 hours. And so I did a lot of fishing and I caught a lot of fish, but I used a much wider variety of lures last year than I had the prior couple of years. And so it's a gradual process for me to really not just fine tune my fishing, but actually get more broad in considering other techniques, trying new things, trying different baits within the same technique to really understand what makes one thing unique over another when I might want to apply one versus the other. It's just a fascination type of thing. But of course, you could just have one or two baits in every category and be totally fine. You don't need to own everything under the sun. And Ron is absolutely right. Might as well face it. Tom says Bass Fishing HQ did a video about the gilly and rigging it that way. Yeah, Ty from Bass Fishing HQ is real solid. I'm sure that pretty much all of you guys watch that channel as well. Now, I don't really watch anything religiously, but I am tuned into Who's Who, and I do from time to time try and play catch up on a bunch of these channels, and I'll watch some of their videos. But I don't really have my notifications turned on all that well. I'm not on YouTube watching fishing content day in and day out. It's tough with 3 kids, Ray says it's definitely a lure addiction. I had it for a bit, but now I'm going in the opposite direction. I'm unloading lures and it feels good. Well, I'm open to that potentially being a possibility someday. But I also kind of really like the idea of getting my kids addicted to fishing and then being able to share my collection with them so that they don't have to go through everything that I did, don't have to spend all the money that I have, but we'll be able to share, and we'll see. I can't force them to do anything. I don't know exactly what they're gonna want to do. All right. Next up is another JDM lure from Jackal. And this one is new to the market and looks pretty wicked. Now, Jackal's going to make me rip this packaging. So, just like Deps did to me last night. So, this is the Jackal Honey Nugget in the 3.8-inch size. Now, you can see that this bait essentially was made in Japan and is a traditional JDM bait. It doesn't look like they made this for the US market, where some of their baits are that way. It doesn't really seem like a JDM bait. Wow, these are sauced up. I'm going to get oily fingers. Ooh, that is a really strong scent. Holy crap. It's shrimpy. That's pretty typical for JDM baits, but that is very strongly scented, and I like that. All right, so check this bait out. This thing has a flat profile, flat top, and a rounded belly. So it's not totally flat. Has a slot on top to hide your hook so that it can rest there and you don't necessarily have to expose this thing. And then it has these thick kickers. So this is going to have a lot of action on a straight swim or on like a yo-yo type of retrieve, or so you could literally fish this thing in so many different ways because of these kickers. So you could fish it as a flipping bait and it's going to be pretty aerodynamic. I think this thing's going to come in and out of cover pretty well, but more than that, I can immediately see this thing doing really well on a wobble head. I can see it doing really well on a free rig, on a Texas rig, and then also on a chatterbait or a swim jig. Now, it is a very wide profile to be fished on a chatterbait or a swim jig. So, you think about it like this, it's going to really fill that skirt and bulk this thing up, but I very well might fish it on the back of a swim jig or a chatterbait. So I'm getting this scent all over my fingers, but yeah, I immediately like this bait. Okay. And I think some of you guys were kind of dogging on it when I was pretty quick to add it to my cart last week, but I immediately like this thing. 3.8-inch size, comes with 5 in a pack, and I think they're pretty well priced, if I am not mistaken. This thing is $5.99. So in my opinion, that's a good price for a true JDM lure like that. And I'm not mad about it. Look at the name of this color. Sand Zarigani Neon Pearl. So that is essentially just like a shad color. And then also got one in green pumpkin chartreuse that you guys know I'm a sucker for. So this is actually like a green pumpkin candy type of color on the back. You got a fair amount of green flake in there, which is not usually like my jam, but yeah, I like that chartreuse back for sure. Very well scented. Very well scented. Now these are a little bit twisted up in the pack. Not that that bothers me too bad, but I do want to just make sure that these are sitting right so that these kickers don't get too messed up sitting in here. Excuse my OCD for a second while I just fix these. But the honey nugget from Jackal, I think they make it in like 3 different sizes, and I immediately recommend it. I do not have any experience using them, but just looking at them, holding them, I can tell you that the quality of the plastic is top notch. It is not going to be a durable bait. It is very salted, very soft. But the profile being as wide as it is, the kickers being as thick as they are, is going to put out, how do I put this? It's going to displace a lot of water, but not going to thump super hard. So it's not like a flappy, like a rage craw, for example, with those really fin flappers and the flange tail that does a combination of displacing a lot of water and making a lot of commotion with the flapping action. Um, this is going to be a more subtle kick, but I think it is going to still displace a lot of water. And that scent is unbelievable. The colors are super cool. So I'm in on that thing. Ray says in salt, I used three lures. That's it. Bass guys are a hoot. Our freshwater biologist is a tourney angler as well. We had a great conversation about this as he uses 3 for salt as well. Interesting. Very interesting. You see, it feels much better when you're only buying what you actually like and what actually works. Sure, I hear you, 1000%. That said, even though I buy a lot, I'm still really picky. I don't buy everything that comes out. Don't get me wrong. I have a giant arsenal of lures, and yet there are still so many that I do not own. So keep that in mind. I have an addiction, but it's not the craziest one, and there's a lot that I don't own, and for good reason. Bruce says, I was thinking the same thing about about the salt. 3 or 4 lures caught almost every species for me. Yeah, I'm not a saltwater angler, so I can't tell you. Daniel says, wow, those look better here than on the Tackle Warehouse picks. Well, that's part of why I like to do this, is to be able to show you guys up close on the webcam what these baits actually look like in person, if you will. I've got one more JDM lure that I want to show and talk about. And I have one pack of these somewhere. I don't know where the heck they are at the moment because my room is a bit of a mess. But this is a bait that we did not talk about while I was shopping. I actually pulled a couple things out of my cart and remembered to look these up, and they were in stock in both sizes, both colors. So I decided to pick up a pack of these, and I'll tell you about them in 1 second. Ray says 3 to 4 is pretty standard for us salt guys. Well, good deal. All right, next bait up is also out there. This is more of a technique-specific type of lure and something that most people have not thought of until recently, and I don't really know why. And this is the Nishini Namazu. Some people would call it Nishine. Doesn't really matter how you pronounce the lure maker, but this is the Namazu, and it is a catfish bait. So this bait is meant to imitate a baby catfish. Check this thing out. Super salted. As you can see, it's covered in salt. And they make this in a 4-inch and a 5-inch, just in 2 colors, green pumpkin and black. This is a relatively simple looking soft plastic made to imitate a baby catfish. So the general thought behind this thing is that us bass anglers are mostly overlooking the reality that bass likely feed on baby catfish. And there's no reason to not believe that. I mean, when you think about what a catfish is like, one, they're not super agile, but 2, they're really soft and slimy. And so would go down the gullet really easily and be a great protein rich meal for a bass. So we should suspect that bass are eating catfish. Of course, not the giant catfish that we see, but rather the babies that are being had every year that we don't ever see. So Yeah, this is a heavily salted bait that does sink and is meant to be fished on or close to the bottom. So, could you rig this thing as a trailer on a chatterbait? Of course you could, but it's super soft. That's not going to be a great use for it. So, really, this thing is meant to be fished on a free rig or perhaps on a Jika rig, Tokyo rig, Texas rig, drop shot, whatever you might want to do with it, Carolina rig, but really just going to let this thing fall to the bottom and then work it along the bottom, um, most likely at a slower pace. So, baby catfish lure. This is going to work its way into my arsenal and be a slow moving presentation. I will likely use it in the same spots as that depths cover scat that I talked about last night. So Nishini Namazu, and I'm pretty excited about this one. Surprisingly, because of all the salt, you can't see some of the details like these eyes here or these fins here that are built into the design of this bait. So it's supposed to have more of this rounded back and the flat belly. So this thing will sit on bottom. Now, if you think about it, this thing will imitate a goby really well too. So for guys who are fishing for smallmouth in northern lakes, this is going to be an awesome bait as well. So think about where you would fish a tube, where you would fish a jig, where you'd fish a free rig in general. The Namazu is going to come into play. So cool bait, new on the market in the last couple of years. Has been on my radar, but as more of like I'm confused as to what to do with that thing. So I'm excited to actually own it now and to give it a whirl this upcoming season and see if I can have some success on it. But pretty cool deal. These come 5 to a pack. This is the 4-inch size in the green pumpkin. I believe I've already got the black color in the 4-inch as well. They make a 4 and a 5. I don't actually remember whether it was a 4 or a 5 that I got the first time around, but they were really low on stock, and I just got what I could that first time around. That was a couple months back, if you guys would remember. Matt, that's a good point. Yeah, I suppose it could imitate a tadpole really well also. When you think about that a thicker head and body with then that longer narrow tail that would imitate a tadpole well. Bruce says American Legacy added a lineup of house brand tungsten weights, really cheap compared to other brands. 5-pack of 3/16 ounce flipping weights for around $5. Cool. Um, Interesting little plug there, but ain't nothing wrong with it. Ron says Agent E. Dude, I'm so sorry. The Agent E got dropped for those Namazus pretty much. So let's go over 2 other baits that we did talk about buying. They're not the Agent E and they're not that square bill from Thunderhawk, that A10 square bill. So sorry about it. But these baits we did talk about, and I'm excited for them. This is the Savage Gear Duratech Ned Dragon Tail Slug. Now, that's a mouthful of a name. But, guys, I love this freaking packaging. Like, look at they're not wasting space here. So, this is the 3-inch version. This is the 5-inch version. I said I was going to get a 4, but I got a 5. And literally, they're wasting no space. They are customizing the size of the bag to the size of the plastic. So, I love that. And not just that, but they're also putting these in clamshell packaging that are all made perfectly for these lures. So you get 5 in a package here. Let me just tell you, those Nishini Namazus were $6.99 a pack for 5 in a bag. So not horrible, not great, just fine, right? This was the color that we all agreed on me getting, and I'm excited to have. And this is the Mojito color of the Ned Dragontail Slug. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Matt says that this bait reminds him. Well, I don't know how much of a fan of Geek Crack Matt is, but this also reminds me of the Geek Crack Bellows Stick in just the design of the bait when you consider just how many ribs this thing has and how the taper of the tail is. So it's got a solid nose, and then you end up getting this thinner body as you go. But as you can see, this thing's made from Duratech or Savage Gear's, Elastec style material. So it's more of a solid half of the bait and then a thin tail material on the back half. So you could rig this thing uh, fairly easily on an EWG style hook. You can see that all the action is in the tail. You could also rig this on a Ned rig, which would be the most obvious way to fish it. And you can thread a size 1 or even 1/0 hook right up the middle of this thing and come out the back where there is that hook slot. Okay. So I really like the look and design of this bait. I like the fact that it is made from a super durable material and is going to float. So when you throw it on a Ned rig, it is going to stand up. When you throw it on a drop shot, however, it is also going to stand up. So you're going to need to work it a little bit faster if it's on a drop shot. So I'm more likely to throw this thing on like a Jika rig, uh, or even as a baby Nico rig, or it's mostly going to be a Ned rig bait for me. But it's chock full of action, and I love that. Really good looking color in this Mojito. So pretty sweet. I mean, this thing is just dancing around. I'm hardly moving it. Look at that thing. I was just trying to scoot it so that you could actually see it. I'm barely touching it. If I actually shake it, that thing, look at, I'm barely using my thumb to move it. That thing's wagging all over the place. So I like it a lot. First impressions of the Ned Dragontail Slug, very good. Great packaging. It's got that same scent that all of their baits have on them. I wish I could put my finger on that scent because it is familiar, but it's not like other baits. It doesn't smell like bait fish or like other lures. I don't know what it is. Bruce's, hell, some of those jokers are charging $7 for 2 weights. Yeah, that's a good point. You're absolutely right. I'm not dogging on you for plugging American Legacy for having cheap tungsten. No, that's awesome. By all means, if you guys are looking for tungsten weights, that would be a good place to do it. Bruce says clamshells don't look too bulky either. No, they're really not. They're designed perfectly around these baits. Tom says if you take a Jackal cover craw and you tear off the appendages, you basically have a cover scat. Poor man's solution. I love a poor man's solution like that. So, good deal. Jackal cover craw. I can't picture that bait. I suppose it's the same thing as if you took like a. Do I have any of them sitting here? So the Rage Tail Punch Bug, which of course, just like all of the Rage Tail baits, was knocked off by Guggen. They made the Nuke Punch. You know, I guess you could cut off this guy, and then what you're left with is like a 2.5 inch version of a scat bait. Uh, Fat in profile, and because of this ribbed body, it's going to have a decent action on the fall. Huh? I did not thinking of. I did not think about trying to make a poor man's scat bait. But interesting idea. I like where your head's at, Tom. Good thinking for sure. Matt says, never seen the stick. Only have the Bellows gill and the Spiron. Interesting. So I only had the gill last year, but I picked up a couple packs of the stick just a few months ago. So I know I've got them sitting around here. But they are super juiced up. So I don't really want to mess with those bags right now. I pulled them out of the pack for you guys to be able to see when I opened them. Oh, I see them over there. I'll grab them real quick. You know, this show is all about show and tell. So we might as well, right? And of course, this was when I got the Namazu 4-inch green pumpkin. You got to be kidding me, man. I guess I got 2 packs now of the same color and the same bait of the Namazu. I guess if I end up loving that thing, that's a good thing. If I don't, though, I very well might end up giving one of those away to you guys to be able to try. But this right here is the Bellows Stick. I'll try to pull one out and not get too douched with scent right now, but it's kind of hard not to. Here is the Bellows Stick from Geek Rack, straight out of Japan. This is the 5.8-inch size. And yeah, lovely. This is a Texas rig, Nico rig, shaky head type of bait. But because of its heavy, dense, highly salted profile, I will probably Nico rig and Texas rig this thing more so than throw it on a shaky head. But tremendous action on it. I think it could be a great wacky rig bait too. So I very well might use it with the ooh, popcorn. Love that smell. I swear I bought some of these some of those things that you're supposed to use with the Bellows gill to it's like a plastic accessory that you run through the middle of the bait so that then you can Nico rig and wacky rig the thing without destroying the plastic quite as easily. Custom made for that bait. So now that you've just seen that bait, let me show you what the Savage Gear Dragon Tail looks like in the 5-inch. Pretty much the same size. This color is called Electric Shad. One of these, oh, fudge. One of these was already screwed up in the pack. The tail is all twisted up, which kind of chaps my ass, but isn't the end of the world. You get 5 in a pack here as well. And now take a look at this thing. Not as soft, but very similar profile in what you get, right? I mean, do I need to pull that thing back out so we can do a side-by-side? Because I'm kind of curious. That's kind of eerily similar. I guess the shape is a little different. On the Bellows Stick, it gets fatter right here. And then the slug, it stays about the same before it tapers down. But I mean, come on, this is like the same bait. Now you can see that the Bellows Stick has a little bit more action out of it, whereas the dragon tail slug, most of the action is down lower in the tail when I'm just wiggling this thing around, right? So it might kind of dictate how I use each of these baits. I see myself throwing the Bellows Stick a little bit more on like a Texas rig, maybe a Nico rig. Whereas I really see myself using this dragon tail slug on a Nico rig or a shaky head because it's made from Duratec, just like that small guy, and it's going to float. So this thing, you can work much slower and it's not going to lay down like the Bellows Stick will. And the durability of this thing is going to be 10 times that of the Bellows Stick. So this thing intrigued me just straight out of, I mean, I'm excited about it. So the way that I will Nico rig this thing when it's made from Duratec or Elastec is literally to use one of these Nico weights from Z-Man that has this double barred plastic keeper. And I will just push this thing straight through the nose. It does a great job of going up into Elastec style baits and grabbing on. So voila, there you have it. And this thing is going to fall straight to the bottom and sit straight up. You do not need to use an O-ring with this. So you just throw your hook right there, hook point up, and start working this thing along the bottom. Because of how fat it is, I will probably rig the hook even lower on the bait just to get the most action out of the tail, as opposed to up toward the center where it's not going to want to do quite as much. But I gotta say, I know that Savage Gear gets a bad rap for having, gimmicky baits in general, but I'm a fan. Not of every single thing that they make, but since they started making these Duratec baits, I like them. And they're scented, which is different than Z-Man. Z-Man doesn't scent any of their stuff. And again, I can't explain what the scent is on these things, but it's good. I had success on a couple of their Duratec baits last year, specifically the Salamander. So, boom, got 2 packs of that, and I think that's it. I actually got one more thing sitting in here, piece of terminal tackle. And this caused, I think, that square bill to get the boot. And I'll show it to you guys in 1 second. Let me catch up on these comments. Lord Vader back in again tonight. Appreciate you, dude. Smalley's up north. We'll eat that. I figured you were talking about one of those two Savage Gear baits, probably the smaller one, but you're absolutely right. Bruce says, good old Mr. Twister just released Ned Rig Soft Plastics. I saw that, man. I'm probably not going to jump on that. And what do you know? You stumped Matt not knowing about the Jackal cover craw. I'm not really familiar with it either, so maybe you stumped us both, or maybe it's not even a real bait. Tom says the punch craw was an older punching bait made by Jackal. Just imagine a cover scat with 2 little arms with tiny pinchers on them. Pincers. Yeah, you were going to say wacky rig it. Well, yeah, especially with the Bellows Stick, it's going to be a great wacky rig bait. Those Savage Gear ones, not as much. I mean, of course, you could throw them on a weighted wacky rig, which I do with some Z-Man soft plastics, is throw them on a weighted wacky rig because, as you guys know, Elastec floats. So you can't just throw it on a wacky rig and expect it to do anything. You throw it on a weightless Texas rig. That thing's a surface bait. All of a sudden, you're throwing a top water, which in some instances is kind of cool, right? You take a Strike King Z2. This is made from 3X, made from Elastec, and rig this thing weightless on a Texas rig, and you got a Jackal bounty fish without the segment. I mean, you got a surface fluke bait, uh, top water walking bait that you can throw in the shit. Matt says, I like that one better, to be honest. Which one? Ooh, you'd love to see it on the back of a chatterbait. And the 4-inch, I think, would be awesome on the back of a chatterbait. But that's a great point and something that I probably should give a shot at some point. He's throwing this dragon tail slug on the back of a chatterbait. Great idea. Thank you, Matt. Tom says Savage Gear stepped up their game in the last 2 years. I agree. I really do. I think they had a bad rap for a while, and in general, I think they're making good stuff these days. I use a fair amount of their stuff. Daniel says the Geek Rack being from Japan, is that why they cost a little more? Yes. The short answer is yes. Two, they're well designed, really soft, really salted. Um, there's a lot to it, but yes, in short, they're JDM soft plastics. So just like you'd get out of Depths or Nishini, or a lot of other, you know, truly JDM baits, you're gonna pay a premium for them. So that's a big part of why Geek Crack baits do retail at like $9 or $10 a pack. Matt says some Savage Gear saltwater baits are killer, especially the eel swim jig and the mackerel walking bait. Both catch some good stripers. I believe you. One thing Matt doesn't like about Geek Rack is their hard baits. Definitely overpriced. Yeah, I've noticed that too. And like we talked about last night with the depths, shoot, what is it called? It's not the Buzz Jet. It's the Evoke Zero. That Depths Evoke Zero. It's just blatantly overpriced, right? I see the same thing about the Geek Crack hard baits. So I'm not even tempted to try them out. Okay, guys, last thing in this package that I'm going to unbox tonight is a terminal tackle accessory, and this is called the Cat 3 2-inch 3-blade teaser. So let me pull this out so you guys can see what it actually is. This thing is pretty sweet. I don't even know how I heard about this, or if I just stumbled across it, but looks like only 2 of these are attached at the moment, for maybe just because it wouldn't fit in the package with all 3 on there. So let me try and use my fingernails and put the last one on here real quick. I don't think I even needed to, dang it. All right, so check this thing out. This is a bladed accessory that in the middle of it has a piece of plastic with a hole. Can you see the hole in the center of this thing? So literally you thread your line through this thing. It comes with a 6-pack of bobber stoppers in the package, because what you do is you run a bobber stop up first, thread your line through, run this up to the bobber stop, and then put another bobber stop on behind it. And then essentially you run this thing as a teaser rig in front of whatever lure you're fishing. So you could be throwing a crankbait, you could be throwing a chatterbait, and of course you could be throwing a finesse swim bait, whatever it is. You can have it all the way butted up to the lure, and then you just get like a mini A rig, or you could have it look like your lure is chasing a ball of bait, and it's an illusion. So this is a really cool accessory that I really hadn't seen anything quite like this before. Um, I've used the Booyah teaser rig in the past. Didn't love it. It did not run properly. But the cool thing about this is it will rotate on the line freely as it is swimming through the water. So the action of this thing is great. The quality uh, of the hardware on it is fantastic. So you're going to get kind of exactly what you want out of this thing. And it's creativity at its finest. So I'm excited about trying something like this season. So the Cat 3 2-inch 3-blade teaser. And what, that was like $9 or something like that. I don't know. $7? Yeah. So anyway, all of that added up to $72, and I ain't mad about it. Now it is mostly soft plastics, right? Oh fudge. It was $89. Those punks. I am so cranky right now. You know why it wasn't $89 this time? I got screwed. Exactly what I said I did not want to happen happened to me. And I'm pissed about it. They did not give me any fair warning. You guys saw it was in stock when I put it in my cart and when I pulled the trigger on it. I'm not happy about it. This bait right here, the Evergreen Flat Force 4, a flat-sided crankbait, one of my favorite flat-sided crankbaits, was in stock in the fire craw color. That was a big part of why I was making that purchase from Tackle Warehouse when I did. And I bought it. So when you add that $16 to the 72, add a little bit of tax on it, there's that 89. Damn it, Tackle Warehouse. I said they do this kind of crap. I'm not happy about it. Sorry, guys. That chaps my ass for sure. Daniel's right. They left out the crankbait. That's exactly what freaking happened. And I'm salty right now, dude. Tom says, aren't the arms of that teaser angled like fan blades so that the whole thing spins? Yes, it is. I don't know if you're quite going to be able to see that right now, but you're absolutely right. These arms are angled. So you can see that one is like not even showing. So yes, the way that this thing comes through the water is that it's spinning as the blades are all turning. So really cool design here. Now it's not the most durable plastic. I think eventually this thing will break or get hung up, but I really like the concept of it. And for me, it was worth trying out because I could see myself using it. In some of the demonstrations, throwing it in front of a crankbait, throwing it in front of a chatterbait, that is not even where my mind would go first. I would immediately think to use it in front of or right butted up against a soft plastic swim bait. Like essentially it's an A rig or spinner bait type of deal. But no, you can think a little bit more outside the box than that and literally put it in front of whatever you want. So, um, yeah. Lord Vader says, if it could happen to me, it could happen too. It could happen to who? I don't know what you're talking about. All right, guys. So, anyway, that unboxing is over. We're an hour and 20 minutes in right now. I'm down to hang out a little bit longer, depending on what kind of mood you guys in, what you want to talk about. Gosh, something's loud outside right now. A little bit too loud, in fact. So I'm going to step aside for about 30 seconds. You might know what's happening, but I'll be right back. All right. All right. My bad. Had to pee real quick. Daniel says, I remember you saying that bait was a must the night I made the order. It was. That was a non negotiable item on the order. Other than that, I was kind of exploring. I had a few things on my mind, but that was on an old wish list that like I knew that I wanted to have. And seeing that it was in stock made me buy that. And the fact that it's no longer in stock makes me upset. Matt says, but why did it say it was in stock and then ordered it and all of a sudden it wasn't in stock? See, that's what happens is that somehow somebody must have bought it and then had like 2 day shipping. Or like we were talking about, maybe a pro ordered it or whatever, and it got loaded into somebody else's box in those 3 days, which was faster than normal or than what I'm used to in the last couple of years of me placing the order and technically claiming that bait and then actually being loaded in my package. Somebody else got it, and that's upsetting. You said it happened this week with the Matsuraba jigs at the hookup. Yeah. I don't think it was a faulty count. I think somebody else nabbed it. Tom says somebody clear off his back wall from the center to the right and send it to me. Are you talking about everything over here? You want all those swim baits? Yeah, we can talk offline. I'm willing to send you some stuff. Thank you for hanging out and being active in the chat tonight, Tom. I appreciate it. Bruce says Matt Steffen uses a plastic quick clip for muskie on Texas rigs. Adds a willow or a Colorado blade you can swap out on the fly. That's interesting. Pretty cool idea for sure. Matt says, Bruce, I've seen some JDM guys using snaps for jigs and Texas rigs. Seem to work just fine in super clear water. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. I don't think that fish are really paying super close attention to a snap or a clip most of the time. Um, you know, we use split rings on moving baits. We use snaps on moving baits, and yet we are all too careful about having um, tying direct and having a low profile knot, strong knot um, on a jig or on something else like that that maybe isn't all that important. So I'm with you there. Guys, what else do you want to talk about? Throw any questions that you have in the chat while we hang out for just a little bit longer, and help me keep this conversation going a little bit. I mentioned earlier that the two baits that I threw today were the Spro um, Little John 50 in the Cellmate color, not this Firecraw color just yet, and um, and the LV 150 from Lucky Craft, their downsized version of the LV 500. And I really liked the way that they both ran and felt in the water. Now, I didn't have enough time to really explore and beat the bank like I ordinarily would and go find fish with moving baits. I was kind of stuck fan casting from one area, and that's unfortunate. There was also two other people eating lunch, eating their Subway sandwiches on the dock and standing kind of, or sitting rather, right where I wanted to be casting from. So that kind of messed me up a little bit, but it was nice to still get out on the water for a few minutes today. And I'm sure that when I have an opportunity to go out for an hour or two when the weather is right, um, that I will catch my first bass of 2022. I can't wait to hear when Ron Hawley catches his first bass and is faced with the difficult decision of whether he should change his name or not, because it's inevitable that sooner than later he is no longer going to be a bassless chap. He might need to change it to the Bass Snatcher or something like that. I don't know. Bruce says, I'm talking about a plastic part that slides up the line. You can swap blades out on. Yeah, that sounds sweet. Belligerence. Hey, dude, I usually miss the streams. Just wanted to acknowledge your consistency. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Not that it's good for the YouTube algorithm or anything. That kind of thing used to matter, but really these days, um, the algorithm is more geared toward either clickbait or searchable content and short form searchable content at that. And I have not been putting that type of content out in a while and probably need to if my intent is to grow this channel and potentially make a little bit more money to further support the habit, if you will. That said, I make a little bit of money off this channel, and it it certainly helps chip away at the price that I'm paying for all of these baits for sure, but doesn't pay for the habit. I'll say that. You also say, I got my first bass of the year on an X Zone Ned Zone on a 1/10 ounce Finesse bullets last week. Nice. I don't really ever rig that on a Finesse bullets jig head. In my opinion, the Finesse bullets is really a jig head meant for craw baits. That X Zone Lures does a really good job of floating. So I'd prefer it on, if you're going to throw something weedless, I'd prefer like the, weedless Finesse shrooms or the lifted jigs, Ned EWG. Now every company makes a Ned EWG, but yeah, I would not think to throw it on the Finesse bullets because of the action of that bait as well as the profile. But right on, dude. Glad to hear that you got the skunk off for the year and finally caught your first bass of the year. That's sweet. Daniel says bass and chat. There's a good idea. And Ron says, Tyler, what test should I put on that KVD combo? Well, Ron, that's a good question. Is it going to be your do everything combo? Because if it is, I would probably consider throwing 15-pound fluorocarbon, just straight fluoro, uh, and that'll cover most of your bases. You know, you could use crankbaits or jerk baits on it, and get away with it, even though the line is going to be a little heavy and the action of the rod is probably going to be a little bit stiff and a little bit fast. But really anything heavier and faster moving than that, all the way up to like 1 ounce baits. Um, yeah, a 15-pound fluorocarbon on like a 7 foot medium heavy. I don't know exactly what that combo is for you. Abe contributing in the chat says quitting for the night, sunburnt and beat, but gonna recharge and start first thing in the morning. Nice, dude. Doesn't help. They're holding the one bass open here all weekend. That is rough. That definitely doesn't help. But thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Abe, I wish you the best of luck on the water tomorrow, especially first thing. That sounds like a blast. Hopefully, the weather is not so hot today. I know you said last night that it was going to be like 96, 97 degrees these couple days. So I hope that you're able to get out early, enjoy the weather while it's nice before it gets too bad, and you get a sunburn on top of your sunburn. So good luck tomorrow, man. Belligerence, I remind me one more time, what is your first name? Because I forget, dude. You told me one time and I already forget. You said I refuse to do clickbait. I kind of do too. And your channel died. Used to have 50,000 subs down to almost 30K. Dang. You said sad to see Richard Jane doing the clickbait titles now. Yeah, it is unfortunate. No doubt about it. Okay, so Ron, you were thinking about 15-pound fluoro, P-line tactical, solid. Solid idea. Matt says that's because YouTube pushes those types of videos, and it's sad. Bet if I made titles like that, the channel would be easier to find. Um, I still don't know about that. I think it's a Google thing, but yeah, if you made videos with titles like that, people would find the videos more than the channel, and you probably would grow faster. It's a reality. Belligerent says I use the bullets all the time just to be weedless. Yep, I hear you. I prefer it to the EWG. I feel like it catches less grass being pointed. And that's a great point for sure. Yeah, the line tie is at more of like a 45 than at a 90. And being a bullet head as opposed to a mushroom head definitely does make a difference if you're fishing in grass. So great point, man. You know, if you're not fishing on hard bottom where a Ned rig is traditionally thrown, then it really doesn't matter. But obviously, that bullet jig head was made for the TRD craws. The Pro Bullets was made for the Pro craws. You know, with the placement of that weight, it presents a craw at kind of the perfect angle so that when you work the bait, it looks like a scooting or fleeing craw. And when it's at rest, those claws are at like an appropriate angle and not straight up. So yeah, those are great jig heads for sure. Matt says, "Damn man, were you still fishing? Forever I'd be beat." I don't know what you're saying, but yeah, Abe fished all day and then he hung out all night with us, and it's relatively late night for him, but I think it's like 9:30 for him, whereas for you East Coasters, it's 12:30. So I will respect your time and get out of here soon, but I appreciate you guys contributing in the chat for sure. Bruce says, on the struggle bus, trying to find the name of those damn clips. Okay, belligerence is Nick. All right, my bad, dude. Nick. Belligerence Nick. Nick belligerent. Nick is belligerent. Um, just kidding, dude. You are not. You're a good guy, and I appreciate you hanging out tonight for sure. So, I always do my best to try and get to know you guys by name and call you by your name instead of your handle if your handle does not include a name. So, I'll do my best. Daniel says, I hate clickbait and I refuse to follow those people. Fair enough. Fair enough. Bruce says, Tyler, with the info you share, I'm kind of amazed you don't have 100K plus subs. Well, thank you for the compliment for sure. But no, it is about an algorithm type of thing. So you have to be consistent in posting the right length videos, the right title videos, and um you have to get momentum and kind of strike gold. A lot of stuff has to go your way, and you also have to do things the way that YouTube wants you to do things in order to see success. And I've never quite had the bandwidth, the mental capacity, um, or even the interest in doing it that way. Um, so, it's not that I'm not open to that. I don't feel that I need to do clickbait. You can do it just like Ty from Bass Fishing HQ, and you can put out informative content that is mostly educational. And you can do lure reviews. You can do top baits for this and that. You can do how to rig this, how to tie knots. You can still share information that is more bite sized and stuff that people are searching for, um, in a way that YouTube will push out the content more. But I just haven't really gotten around to doing that. Haven't put the time in. It's a lot easier for me to sit down on a random night and hang out with you guys for 2 hours and then that be it, as opposed to me plan out a video for maybe an hour or two, sit down and record it once or twice, spend a couple of hours editing it, spend the time making the thumbnail, and then really write out the whole description, the tags, think out the title. It's a whole thing to be able to just create one video that's going to perform well. Um, and yeah. Tom says clickbait titles suck. Nick says, I like using the Ned Zone on a bullets because of the way, because it casts way further than a TRD craws or bugs. I didn't think about that. But yeah, you guys know that I absolutely love the Ned Zone. It's in like my go-to box of Ned rig baits, has been for a couple years now. So here's the Ned Zone and the Ned Bomb. But yeah, the Ned Zone in like this 309 color, super sick. Or even just like this, what do they call this color? Maybe they call it Bass Candy or something. That purple iridescence and that green back with the gold and purple and black flake. I mean, their colors are so good. And I do like the way that bait floats. So yeah, that bait and then the missile bait Ned Bomb. I've got 3 colors of each sitting in this little box, and then I've got a separate box that I've got the 6 cents Ned Fry, the Yum Ned Dinger, and the Guggen Baits Rattling Ned. But you guys know that I throw a lot of different Ned baits, including most of the Z-Man lineup. I carry this box right here that's got the TRD ticklers, the baby goat, the Strike King baby Z2, the TRD craws, the slim swims, the TRD bugs, the TRD tubes, and the Finesse TRD, all in this thing. And I will load each of those packs with like a couple baits um, of multiple colors in each pack. But yeah, I'm kind of a Ned rig fanatic for sure. Matt says, "What are your go-to square bills, Tyler?" Well, we've talked about this recently. I mean, until like this year or last year, I had two go-to square bills, straight up. Um, the KVD 1.5, and I throw it in the silent and the rattling. Um, this is one of the old ones. It is a sweet crawfish pattern with the painted eyes on it. Really like this thing, and they make it in a rattling that is exclusive to Bass Pro and Cabela's. So I throw both the silent and the rattling version of the KVD 1.5. I also really like the KVD 1.0, which I've got a dedicated box for as well. That's not them. And then the Lucky Craft 1.5. And I also really like that TO craw color. But I like a lot of the shad patterns. And of course, these are probably my two favorite color patterns that Lucky Craft makes. MS American Shad and then Ghost Minnow. But I also throw these in this is the Moonsault version, so you can see all these different rattles in here. So you get kind of a lipless crankbait sound out of a square bill crankbait. But it was really just Strike King and Lucky Craft that I threw until like 1 or 2 years ago, and then I've really branched out in starting to try a wider variety instead of just change up my size. So I don't throw the 2.5 very often. I throw a 1.5 a lot of the time. I'd say probably 70% of the time, and then I throw a 1.0 that's small size that's like a quarter ounce instead of a 3/8, like the other 30% of the time. Wow, I'm getting behind. Ron says Norman lures speed clips. I don't think that's what he was talking about. SOB. I found it on Bass Pro Shops. Quick change snap clevis. It runs up the line so you can swap out all sorts of blades. Interesting. BPS quick change snap clevis. I'm going to just copy and paste this in a separate tab so I could check it out later. But thanks for the heads up, dude. Check that out later. Daniel says, I think what we do here is chill. It's not pressured, and honestly, it's one of my favorite streams just for what we share and learn. I agree, man. Not pressured. we're just hanging out, just talking fishing. Um, and who knows, maybe it will evolve over time. Maybe I will try to collaborate with other people, bring on guests a little bit more frequently. But I like this format, to be honest, where it's a back and forth. It's an ongoing relationship. It's like we're all just hanging out, you know. Um, I don't like the pressure of feeling like I have to always show up with not only um, a topic in mind, but like a full set of notes and a breakdown of everything that I want to cover to feel like I'm providing value for you guys. I really like how this is reciprocal, and and that you guys are appreciative, um, and that I am of you guys as well. So thank you. Bruce says he passed out last night and was pissed that he missed a live. Well, it happens to the best of us, man. Matt says I also learned that having too long of a live where not many people are watching can hurt your channel. And say if you're a beginner streamer, you should only do an hour or so, um, so that it's not 40 minutes of two people watching. Yeah, that's fair. Especially when you don't have a large audience. Um, Not that I have a large audience, right? There's 13 people in here right now, 12. It's dropping off. But I think we had upwards of 20 tonight. Even though I have 3,000 subscribers, 20 people in a live stream. Ratio wise, that's about appropriate. Um, but I see what you're saying, that if you're doing a long live stream and you don't have a following of people who are going to check in and watch long form content, then it can almost be detrimental to your channel. So I agree with that. Tom, no problem, dude. He said, I got to step out. Headache is coming back. Have a good weekend. Good night, everyone. Well, good night to you as well, Tom. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate the support. Sorry if you're already gone, but thank you, man. Matt says, do you use those for cover or for rocks mainly? Um, yes. So no, I use a square bill on rocks more. Um, but I will cover crank with a KVD or a Lucky Craft. So I just like that they run pretty true. That I can impart the action by speeding up the retrieve, or relying on the deflection to create a hunting action or an irregularity, um, in that bait. That it is going to run true with like a true middle wobble. They're not super tight and they're not all over the place. That's one reason that I want to like, but don't like 6 cent baits as much, is that those baits are all over the freaking place. And so what you get out of a Strike King and a Lucky Craft are like a very true middle wobble, true running bait. So they're designed to be making constant contact. And I find that I get bit best, when fishing rock, just because I can be banging cover the entire way back. And yeah, Bruce says, "Are you guys using spinning rigs for the tiny OGs?" I was going to use my bait caster for it today, but I had that Spro tied on, and obviously it cast really well. Will cast much better than the tiny OG, but I would say that the tiny OG is more likely spinning rod category. Um, I just much prefer to throw crankbaits on a bait caster. So if I can get away with it, I will. My standard cranking setup is 12-pound fluorocarbon, um, on a Daiwa Tatula SV. So that thing casts light baits really well, but I don't often throw quarter ounce baits other than like a 1.5 size square bill, things like that. I certainly have and will do it, but I haven't tried throwing that bait just yet. I don't know how well it's going to cast without an internal weight transfer system and being such a lightweight balsa lure. So I'll have to report back on that one. Ron says the trouble with a lot of people watching is that you can't get a question in or answered, and that's a fact. So honestly, like I sometimes can't keep up. If you guys are all super active and we've got 20 people in here, I can't keep up. If there were 300 people in here, if you're on a Debo live stream, for example, he can't even see all the comments. He's mostly just responding to people who are throwing donations because that's a good excuse for him to feel obligated to highlight a comment is because somebody threw some money in there to try and get the attention or get a question answered. But that's really the only like guaranteed way. That says reason I try and talk as much as I can on here is because that does help. It shows you have some activity on the stream. That's true. I didn't think about that, but I do really appreciate that, Matt. Thank you. Nick says my suggestion is that you title your streams as a show with episode numbers. Interesting. I didn't think about that. Hooksets are free. Episode 200. Neds and chatterbaits. Huh. Did not think about that, man. Thank you for the suggestion. That's a good one. I'll definitely think about that. Where essentially then I'm doing a live podcast with audience interaction. I do agree with it. So cool, man. Mike Sr. says, at work watching your videos, always good to learn new fishing tips. Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate that. I don't think I recognize your name, so it's very nice of you to jump in the chat and at least let us know that you're here. Even if you're watching at work, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think we're all on the same page that we like learning new fishing tips, and we all learn from each other here, right? This is not a one-way street where I'm just barking at you guys the whole time. If you notice, I'm interacting with you guys in the chat the whole time. Now, of course, if I'm unboxing, if I'm presenting on something specific, then I try to do, a fair amount of the talking. And then when it's appropriate, refer to the chat, maybe answer some things. But for the most part, the format of these live streams are for me to come in with an idea of what we're going to do or talk about, and then just let it run and let the comments dictate a lot of what this conversation ends up being about. So thank you, man. Nick says, if you add all your episodes to a playlist on your channel, it will help you grow without you having to change your videos at all. Dude, I'm learning. Maybe we need to have you on here sometime to teach us about growing a YouTube channel, even though you already admitted that your YouTube channel has fallen off a little bit. But if you've got 30,000 subscribers, man, I'm sure there's a lot that we can learn from you. So by all means, share the wealth of knowledge that you've got with us. Ron says, I have two smaller spinning rods. I figured on throwing the tiny fours on them with 14-pound mono. That sounds kind of heavy and floaty to me. 14-pound mono is going to make that thing only dive like 2 to 3 feet. I think you're only going to get it to run 4 feet if it's on fluorocarbon, and if it's more in that like 12-pound range. If you go up to 14, it's probably going to run a little shallower than 4 feet. If you're throwing it on mono, maybe even shallower than that. So keep that in mind. Also, it's really hard to throw 14-pound mono on a spinning reel. You're going to get a lot of wind knots, and you're going to, yeah, it's going to end up being a little bit of a mess. Just FYI. I don't know why that just kicked on. Mike says my CNC machine does a decent amount of cycle time. Well, good deal, dude. So you're working and then you're sitting. I hear you. Ron says, "Yeah, Matt, I can't even read the comments. They move too fast on some of those guys' live streams." I hear you, 1000%, guys. All right, well, that thing's distracting me. I've been on for an hour and 55 minutes. Super appreciate your guys' support and your willingness to hang out late on a Friday night. So I feel very, very blessed and fortunate to have the community that we have here, albeit, a small one. Doesn't matter to me. I'm not in this for the growth or for the money. While I'm certainly not opposed to all of that happening at some point, that is not the point of this. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. This was a fun unboxing for me. Um, I've had 3 unboxings in the last week, so I get it when Ray was giving me a hard time for being addicted to lures, but that is the reality. Guys, I'm obsessed. I love this shit. So thank you guys so much for hanging out tonight. Hope you have a great rest of your Friday night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I guess there's a slim possibility that I could be on tomorrow night for a third night in a row. If my wife gets called in to work, which she's on call tomorrow, if she gets called in and I'm in the mood, don't be surprised if you see me same time tomorrow night. But also don't be surprised if I'm not on, all right? So, Daniel, I'm happy that you're a part of it. Ron, Matt, Bruce, Lord Vader, I should know your name. I don't. Nick, Mike, everybody else in here, thank you guys so much. Super fun. And I look forward to the next one. All right, see you guys.